Welcome to OAC Health Talks. I'm Joe Naglowski, OAC President and CEO, and we are excited for you to join us for this educational video series that dives deeper into specific health topics that we know are important to you and the OAC community. Today's OAC Health Talk focuses on the topic of bariatric surgery, everything you need to know before and after surgery from a patient perspective, and it features OAC National Board Member and bariatric surgery patient Kristal Hartman. Making the decision to have bariatric surgery can bring on different emotions for everyone, and once the surgery is scheduled, likely you've faced many questions centered around the uncertainty of what to expect physically, mentally, and emotionally. Kristal is here today to walk you through what to expect as you enter this next phase in your journey and help you to be better prepared for what's to come. And with that, take it away, Kristal.
Hey everyone, this is Kristal Hartman, and I'm really excited to be joining you today for this health talk. I think, it's a great opportunity to talk to everyone about preparing for bariatric surgery. The OAC has been an incredible resource for me throughout my bariatric surgery journey. And so today we're going to talk about what to expect from a patient's perspective when preparing for bariatric surgery. So again, Kristal Hartman, I am part of an active member of OAC and part of the OAC board. Really happy to be joining everyone today to do this health talk. My journey began in childhood when I started to really struggle with obesity, especially in my teen years. And as I got older and I had other things in my life come up, like pregnancies and health issues and things like that, I just had gained more and more weight, and I had tried every fad diet under the sun and medications and everything I could think of. And finally, one day, my doctor sat me down and said, I think it's time to consider bariatric surgery. So at that point, I was 35 years old. I was on 14 prescription medications. So all of those medications were covering the many comorbid conditions that come along with obesity. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe that at 35 years old, here's my doctor trying to talk to me about bariatric surgery. I should be able to control my weight. And so I actually waited an entire year before I called the bariatric surgery office and made my first appointment. Part of it in that time is that, I had my own self-negative talk. I had my own bias and weight stigma against myself. And as you all well know, we experience weight stigma and bias in everyday life as well. And even with our healthcare providers. So as supportive as my endocrinologist was about, bariatric surgery and trying to get me to a really healthy place in my life, my primary care physician, as soon as I told her that that was something that was being considered, she said, you're young, you're educated, you're in the medical field, you should be able to do this. If you would just, eat a little less and walk a little more, you would be able to lose this weight. Well, meanwhile, my BMI was in the morbidly obese category. I had over 100 pounds that I needed to lose, and she was continuing to write 14 prescriptions for all the comorbidities that I was experiencing. So it was, a year before I had called. I had gone to the hospital twice with severe illnesses related to my obesity. And finally, one day, with tears streaming down my cheeks, I called and I said, it's time. I really need to make my first appointment. And, at that point in time, it was really difficult because I felt like I had personally failed myself. It was challenging because I had tried everything I could think of, but I couldn't understand why I wasn't able to lose the weight on my own. So we all come to this bariatric surgery journey in our own ways. That's just my story about how I decided to proceed with bariatric surgery. And I know that each of us has our own journey and our own reasons, and potentially people who are helping us along this journey make a big decision like bariatric surgery. So it's overwhelming. It's a very tough thing to navigate. You're not sure exactly what to expect. There's a lot of nerves, especially with those first few appointments as you're figuring out, what your bariatric surgery center is going to be telling you. How much weight do you have to lose? What is a, all liquid diet going to be like, right? So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about, from a patient's perspective, what all of that looks like as you're leading up to surgery, what it's like in those days following surgery, and then now being 7 years out, just slightly over 7 years out, some of the things that are still, impacting my daily life. And so again, know that each of and every one of us are our own individuals and are experiencing things differently. But I hope that, this can help you kind of navigate this process and help you, come to understand what to expect. So maybe the first thing we should talk about is some of the changes that happen physically, and some of the things that physically you'll need to be prepared for coming up to surgery. And so a lot of times in your bariatric surgery center, hopefully you have a very supportive center. If you haven't had the opportunity to find your bariatric surgeon yet, I would definitely go onto the OAC website and utilize the Find a Provider link. Find someone that is very experienced in this field, and most importantly, find someone that has a very comprehensive program around bariatric surgery, because it's not just simply going in, seeing the surgeon, and then showing up a month later at your surgery date. And in my case, I had the gastric sleeve, having 3/4 of your stomach cut out, right? It's not that simple. You need to be talking to physical therapists and nutritionists and exercise and movement scientists and folks that are going to be following your care after bariatric surgery, so that you're having chronic weight management after bariatric surgery as well. And so please, reach out to someone that or someone within the OAC community or the OAC Find a Provider website, so that you can find the right program for you. That support system is going to be so important to you leading up to your surgery, and especially for the first year after surgery. So your program might differ, your insurance requirements might differ. There's different requirements, prior to surgery, how many appointments you may need to go to, how many nutritionist appointments you may need to go to, how much weight you may need to lose before surgery. So each of those is going to be different for every single one of us. But your bariatric surgery center will help guide you through all of that. For me in particular, I did have to lose a percentage of weight before I was able to have bariatric surgery. So I had to get in a very good spot mentally to make sure that I was ready and able to commit to, a 5 or 10% weight loss prior to surgery. And, we've all tried so many different diets and all of these types of things, but the guidance that my team gave me actually really very much helped me through that. The other thing to prepare yourself for is, anytime that you have surgery, the healthiest that you can be going into that surgery is going to make your recovery even more smooth, So make sure you're taking really good care of yourself, getting lots of rest, that you're taking in lots of hydration and fluids. In the days prior to surgery, you're going to be on a fluids only diet. So get yourself prepared mentally, to be potentially a little cranky, to be very honest, as you're going through all of those days before with fluids only. But just understand that you're reaching for a broader, more long-term goal by doing all of this. So, but the healthier and the best that you feel going into the surgery, the better that your recovery will be. I think the other thing too is emotional. I had a lot of emotions going into surgery. And in fact, even to that day, I hadn't really been put under for surgery before. And so this was the first time, and I had a lot of fears going into that. And I talked to my surgeon and talked to fellow OAC members. And also I had a mentor. I highly recommend, if there's someone that that's already gone through bariatric surgery, that you ask them if they'd be willing to mentor you and be there for you for any personal questions. But for me, it was really scary to go under for the first time. And so, they put me at ease by explaining every detail of what would happen. But there was a lot of emotional components of that, trying to work through all of the changes I had made prior to surgery, and then also emotional wondering what was coming up next. What was it going to actually be like after bariatric surgery? The other thing too that kind of contributes to that emotional state is some of our friends and family and the support system that you have, or hopefully have. Not all of us will have the very best support system, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about that as well. But I think most importantly, if you also can be mentally prepared. So when it comes to making a huge lifestyle change, which bariatric surgery is absolutely a lifestyle change. There's no getting around it. Your life will never be the same. And there will be days that you're thinking, what on earth was I doing? How did I come to this decision? But in the end, it's going to be all worth it, I promise. And all of the folks that I've talked to over the years in my own bariatric surgery program and across OAC wide, those that have had it have actually been very, very happy overall with their experience and their decision. And so I really encourage you from a mental perspective to lean into your support system, and especially if you're seeing a mental health care provider, that you would reach out to them and help have them help you get through kind of the mental blocks that may be happening leading up to surgery. And even after surgery too, mental health will be an incredibly important part of your journey as well. But I really recommend talking to someone through all of that, because you're going to experience many ups and downs throughout the process, and a mental health care provider can definitely help you navigate those. So I alluded a little bit to the social component as well, and it's really interesting, I think, the impact that bariatric surgery, or the decision to have bariatric surgery, has on your social relationships and your family relationships. Those will change over time, and hopefully for the positive. Even if you have people in your life that are very skeptical or fearful, I think over time, watching you go through this journey, they're going to see that you've made the best possible decision for yourself, and they're going to get to watch the evolution as you go through each of these steps. Prior to bariatric surgery, I had family members that wanted to support me, loved me, said, we want you to be healthy. We've been, very sad to see that that your health has declined, especially at this age. I kept telling my family, I have 3 kids and I'm 35 and already on a trajectory to live a short life due to chronic disease that was going to come on way too early. And I wanted to be there for my kids. And so whatever your reason why is, or reasons why you are doing what you're doing, be open about sharing those so that people understand why you're making such a big decision. And at that point in time, you've done the best you can to explain to them why that is. If they are supportive, fantastic. Count them into your circle of friends and family that are going to help you through this whole process. And if they still remain skeptical, then you may have to just take a step back from those folks, knowing that as they see you go through this, that hopefully their minds will be changed. I had people say, I can't believe you're thinking about doing something permanent to your body. Are you sure you want to have a permanent surgery that you can't undo? So there's a lot of fear around what bariatric surgery entails from a physical standpoint. And I encourage you to, if you have some of those same worries, utilize the resources in the OAC Resource Center to do a lot of research prior to this. Lean on your team at your bariatric surgery center to help you learn what to expect, and be open to sharing those resources with your friends and family who are curious, and maybe help alleviate some of their fears, because the more supportive that they are for you, the more successful long-term you will be. And so please don't be afraid to share those with them, and hopefully they can come right along the journey with you. And so if someone is not on that journey though, and I said you might have to take a step back, you have to prioritize yourself during this time. I will say that a lot of people may not understand why you're stepping back from friendships or from, engagements or responsibilities that you have always had prior. But this is a time to really self-focus, really kind of go within yourself and really pay attention to what you need mentally, emotionally, and physically to prepare for surgery, to understand what you're going to need immediately after surgery, and then what type of mental, emotional, and physical support you'll need in the coming year post-surgery. It's important to really prioritize yourself during this time and your self-care, because you're going to need to sort of set aside some of those other responsibilities and those things that people might already be expecting of you and say, this is the time that I really need to focus on my health and well-being. And congratulate yourself for making that decision. It's very hard to put ourselves first. Oftentimes, we fall way down on the level of priorities, but you are making a decision to prioritize your health, which means, you're investing long-term in this decision. So I think, leading up to surgery, your team's going to help you, get prepared. And, as soon as I woke up from surgery, I thought, oh my goodness, do I feel different? What's happening, right? I mean, immediately I thought, oh my goodness, I have so much that's still ahead of me. And there will be some discomfort after surgery. With any surgery, there is. But ultimately, it was more the pain level was more of an inconvenience rather than any type of extreme level of pain after surgery. They help you manage through all of that. You've already begun your liquid diet prior to, and so you're going to continue that for likely up to 30 days after your surgery. I lived and died by the packet that my bariatric surgery center gave me, and it told me everything I needed to do in those days following bariatric surgery. And it'll be interesting because your body will start changing very quickly. And, you may actually have to change the way that you do things. For example, food and eating. So we all know that we have our very individualized relationships with food, and that some of those relationships might be what led us to obesity, among other things, right? Genetic things that we cannot control, environmental things that we cannot control. So there's a lot of reasons that someone with excess weight ends up being a person with excess weight. And so when we're talking about the chronic disease of obesity, we're talking about a multifactorial disease that has a lot of different components. One of those is the food and eating and nutrition component, and your team will help you prepare for what that's going to look like. And I also encourage you to reach out to the OAC community. There are so many of our folks that post recipes and support groups online, and you'll probably be joining your local support group as well through your bariatric surgery center. But really lean into those people to help you get through those first 30, 60, 90 days after surgery, as you're moving from liquids into soft foods, into blended foods, and then moving into actually real foods within that first kind of 6-month time frame. But food and eating, it can be hard to see others eat. I think that was one of my biggest challenges. It's not like I necessarily wanted the food, because my body had changed in so many ways as soon as I'd had my bariatric surgery. I still felt hunger, but obviously my body was healing, and it didn't take very much to fill me up. And so it wasn't so much that I wanted all of the food that I was seeing people eat. It was that when they were eating real food and I was eating something that, had, chicken bone broth, for example, and they were eating spaghetti, then it was something I kind of had to separate myself from for a while. I really, I would eat at different times as the family. And when they were eating foods, I would kind of go upstairs. And for those first set of time, maybe that first 30, 60, 90 days, I even chose not to go to events that were revolved around food, because your diet is so specific for those first few months after surgery that it just helps you maintain your focus on what you need to be doing at that time to nourish your body in all of the right ways. And so it will also allow you to adjust to your new normal. Pretty soon, you eating right along everyone else is going to be old hats. It's not even going to affect you. You won't even think twice about it. But in those early days, just make sure you're focusing on setting up the environment that's going to set you up for the best success. As we know, life still revolves around food. I mean, that's every single event that we participate in generally has some sort of food aspect to it. And so that's not going to change. But instead of I used to mindlessly eat, I think, in response to stress or boredom or, any number of things. But I think, life still revolves around the food that you're putting into your mouth. The difference is, though, that you really need to make sure that you're getting your fluids in, that you're getting your protein in, that you're getting your supplements in, and your days will look a lot more like planned meals, right? Planning when you're going to eat and what you're going to eat. And then that's going to take a lot of time, thought, and effort so you can manage your food intake in the right way. So mentally prepare yourself for that. Also, know that there's a lot of different resources out there that can help. And, from day 30 after surgery, I've logged in every single day to MyFitnessPal since I had surgery. So actually, it was exactly 7 years and 1 month ago. So for 7 exact years, I've logged into MyFitnessPal every single day and entered all of my food that I'm eating, paying attention to my macros and my micros, looking at my fluid intake, looking at my protein intake for the most part is being the most important. And then, some of the other things secondarily, calories and fats, et cetera, carbohydrates, et cetera, too. But, you're going to need to commit to really keeping track of what you're eating so that you're getting the nourishment that your body needs. So your body will change drastically. And sometimes, and it depends on where we all start in our journey, but you'll see physical changes pretty quickly. Unlike any other, let's just say, so-called diet that we've ever tried before, your body is going to change drastically after surgery. There may be some side effects, and your physician team can help you through that. You might experience things like acid reflux or dumping syndrome, sometimes due to too much of a sugar intake. Maybe there's some potential vitamin deficiencies depending on what kind of bariatric surgery you had. Sometimes there can be hair loss because you are losing weight quickly. Also, sometimes just going under anesthesia for surgery can contribute to hair loss. And so some of these things that nobody ever really talks about can be things that I want you to be aware of. And as some of these unique things start happening to you, talk to the other folks in your support groups that are kind of in the same time frame as you, and you guys can talk about kind of some of the ways that you can deal with the potential side effects. But again, your doctor is going to be your best resource for how your body is feeling and changing. And so I think one of the most exciting things for me after bariatric surgery was one of my first follow-up visits and the next couple of follow-up visits after that. And it was so cool because, positive changes were already not only happening physically, but my body was changing. And the medications that I was on prior to surgery, I had mentioned that I was on 14 medications for my comorbidities for obesity, and just weeks and even a few short months after surgery, I was able to go off of so many of those medications because my A1C and blood sugars were better, my cholesterol was better, my asthma, man, I haven't had a single asthma attack since I had bariatric surgery. That was one of my comorbidities. So I got to go off of all of my inhalers and asthma medications, which was just a beautiful thing. So get excited, right, for how your health and your body is changing after surgery. And that starts to happen so quickly. And it's just so motivating to see, let's be honest, we spend a lot of time looking at the scale, especially after bariatric surgery. So by all means, celebrate your scale victories, but also pay attention to those non-scale victories. Are you able to get up and walk to and from the mailbox without being out of breath? Are you able to go off of 1 or 2 of your medications? There's so many little things to celebrate along the way, and be sure, get your dopamine hit, say yes, actually physically say yes and celebrate and be proud of yourself, so that your body responds to that positive motivation, and it's going to keep you going. And it's really fun to celebrate all of those things along the way. So one thing I mentioned earlier too, and I have said this to myself so many times, but weight loss surgery changes our stomach. It changes the physiology within our stomach, depending on what surgery you have, but it doesn't change your head. And so I think really what you need to be aware of during all of this time is that your mental health is incredibly important before, during, and after surgery. Make sure you are on board with a mental health care provider, especially if your bariatric surgery center has one that is focusing mostly on weight management patients, because they're going to help you mentally change your way of thinking, because your body is changing physically, but your emotions and your mental state are going to be going through lots of ups and downs throughout this whole time too. And you're going to need that support to get through that, and to make sure that all of those positive changes that your body are making, that your brain is also saying, okay, I understand that I'm not starving to death. I can take more fluids in if I'm feeling extra hungry. There's a lot of positive things I can do to take my mind off of food, like go for a walk or play with my dog, or whatever those might be. So there's a lot of different parts of that mental health component that are incredibly important, and there's a lot of great resources about that too on the OAC website that I encourage you to look at. So I think really when it comes down to it, there's a lot of changes that are happening. I think it's really exciting. Don't be fearful when you have the roller coaster days that are a little bit down, because there will be something that brings you right back up. And I can tell you now, 7 years later, that there is so much to be excited about. I haven't regretted my decision a single moment of the last 7 years. I'm the healthiest I have been able to be for myself, for my kids and my family. And, those that were a little bit, I would say, skeptical at the beginning, saw how these changes impacted my life in such a positive way. And it has completely changed most of their minds too about bariatric surgery and the positive effect it can have on patients' lives. And so I just encourage you to enjoy this journey and use your support system and your support resources whenever you need to. And I think someday you'll be 7 years out, probably talking on one of these health talks too, and sharing your experience about how this was an incredible decision that you made for yourself. So I hope you've enjoyed this health talk. I hope that this has helped you ease your decision and maybe some of your worries about your decision for bariatric surgery, and that some of these tips were helpful. And, again, lots of resources at your fingertips for the OAC website. And we would love to have you join us for some of our Your Weight Matters conventions, where there are specific talks just for patients for bariatric surgery. So please reach out if you've got any questions about what types of materials we can be helping you with here at the OAC. So I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Kristal, for such an honest and motivational talk. We know how important it is to hear from those who have walked the journey before, and we appreciate you offering this real perspective to help others feel better prepared. The OAC has a variety of educational opportunities for you throughout the year, but one of the best places you can turn to for quality, unbiased education is our resource library. Simply visit obesityaction.org/library and check out our brochures, articles, guides, videos, and more health talks. Also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified of any future educational events and broadcasts. Thank you for joining us.